Hello, lurkers. I don't know if anyone's watching, but I just want to make content for the neurodivergent community. And this can serve as like a database or at least another resource for people looking for information. I guess I'll start with what like neurodivergence is. The 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 quickest definition is your brain is just different in some way. There could be many ways where you become neurodivergent. It could be like a brain trauma, something inherited, some gene finally manifests itself, and then your brain becomes different because of that. Prolonged stress and trauma can create brain differences too. Many different ways for a person to become neurodivergent or realize that they are neurodivergent. The ones that people think about most commonly when it comes to neurodivergence are autism and ADHD. So the first thing I want to say that's becoming more apparent oh my God, you've subscribed to me for 43 months? Really? Holy moly, thank you. I didn't even realize. Wow, you're the best. So what was I saying? So the most common neurodivergences that people are familiar with are ADHD and autism, but there are these things in the therapist world, so practicing psychology, and I've seen it in different spaces where they're saying that the United States is way beyond Europe right now when it comes to neurodiversity, affirmative information and care. Hi, Griffith. Thank you for coming by, first time chatter. So I'm talking about the fun topic of autism, and I just want to share information that... Hey, Leroy. I'm talking about autism, the fun... Yep, my Fortnite brother. So... Okay. Keep on losing my track. Because neurodivergence and neurodiversity affirmative care is still new, the United States is actually known as being the most progressive when I talk to people or see people post about it in Europe. And so this is a really neat thing that's happening. It's going to be seen differently. The thing is right now, though, when you look at the definition of autism or ADHD, you see the traumatized version of an autistic person or a person with ADHD, which is kind of like very sad to see. When you think about that, you're thinking about someone who's severely dysregulated and acts out what you call the stereotype of what you think autistic people look like or what you think an ADHDer looks like. But that's most likely someone at their worst. They're struggling and life is becoming accumulatingly more difficult because of their brain and body. They're not being able to manage whatever life is throwing at them because there's no skills or awareness of how their brain works differently, which is very sad to think about. Like when you have someone, your brain is just different, but the school system or your family or you don't know how to care for it in some way, there's going to be, a snowball effect of things getting worse. And it doesn't feel like your body or your brain belongs to you. So I'm just here to share information. And like I said earlier, because this information is fairly new, things could change. The things I present here could be tweaked over time. It could be kind of like debunked. Research can come out and say, actually, these things are slightly correct, but some things are better now, or it can be more, more detailed in what it actually means. So I'm just going to share some things where people can kind of think about it. You can think about if you have your own autistic experience or you know someone who is, or just question what you think it could look like when you're thinking about someone who says they are autistic, what's going on underneath, because it's like an iceberg We don't really know how someone is experiencing the world, and maybe they don't even have the language for it either. So this might help someone feel very seen, or at least it's like a starting point, somewhere else to go to explore what's going on with their body and their brain. Thank you. Have fun watching Oliver. Take care. Let me see. So this is the autistic spectrum, and this is one of the main people I follow. He's amazing, Matt Lowry. He's one of the main pioneers of the movement, and he's just a really cool guy. He's been on many panels, trying to spread a different lens of what neurodiversity could look like. And so I'm going to go over some of this because of time. But also, again, you have the power of the internet. You're here using the internet. That means that you can research things on your own too. So where is it? I'm going to open my thing and then just start talking about different possible aspects of the autism spectrum. So when we say it's a spectrum, this is what it actually looks like underneath, instead of when people say, what is it called? Level 1, level 2, level 3 now? Or what's the ableist terms that people, high functioning, low functioning. So those are not being used anymore. However, since the terms have existed for so long, people tend to call it that still. So instead of that, you'd say high support needs, low support needs. That kind of is better to understand. It's like, oh, this person needs more support. High functioning, low functioning. Yeah, so because let's say you're considered high functioning autistic, which is called long time ago or several years ago, Asperger's or high functioning, right? So on the outside, you look like you're able to blend in with society and do the typical things that other people can do. Like the biggest one for me is if you're quote unquote the high functioning autistic a long time ago, Asperger's, you are seen as having maybe high IQ, maybe not, but you have the ability to speak, the ability to have like spoken word language. I think that's the one thing that is a big part of it. It's like, well, if you can speak, we pair that with someone able to care for themselves or not having difficulties underneath. So if someone is having low support needs, aka high functioning back then, you're dismissing all this stuff underneath. So if someone, even if they have the potential to speak and advocate for themselves, there's still the ability or the experience of getting sensory shut down, crisscrossing social cues, having problems with all these things, but it's not as severe because you don't see it, like the hand flapping or whatever you want to call, like the stereotypical picture of what you would think an autistic person looks like. They're able to at least care for themselves in some type of way, but it also could be a very poor way of taking care of themselves. Like they're not always remembering to shower when they have to, not always brushing their teeth, not knowing when to eat or drink. Like these things are part of the autistic experience, also ADHD experience, because your brain is different. I need to show another. There, I'm going to show this first. Let me back it up. So this is from a research article that I'm not going to cite because the dude who did the research leaned towards eugenics. It sounded like the purpose of the research was to, get rid of the autistic problem, basically. And so when, this is from Matt Lowry's website too. So when he says certain things about why someone's intentions for research would be a certain way, I will take it into consideration and be like, yes, I won't cite either because that's a terrible thing to name. You don't want to name someone with bad intentions of wanting to harm an entire population of people, even though it can be debilitating. You don't want to get rid of it. You want to find a way to support their experiences in society. To continue on the tangent, is ADHD and autism the only forms of neurodiversity? At least these are the only two diagnoses I see coupled together on the internet. No, it's not. That's the problem too. I get really upset when people talk about neurodiversity and they only talk about ADHD and autism. There was actually a therapist in a group compiling resources for neurodiversity. And I asked, are you going to talk about multiple sclerosis? Are you having resources for epilepsy? What about all these other conditions that go on with the brain? And then she was like, no, just ADHD and autism. Like, well, that means you're not compiling resources for neurodiversity, are you? You're just making resources for ADHD and autism. She's like, oh. So even though you have a therapist who says they're neurodiversity affirming, hi, Turtle. You're here. First time chatter. Let's go. I'm talking about the fun topic of differences in brains. I know you have to go back and mod, but I really appreciate you coming by. You're my favorite turtle. So I hope you're having a good day too. I know you guys sleep late. Gosh, you guys sleep so late. I hope you're doing okay. So there are many, many types of neurodivergent experiences. I have an image, and this is from another person. So let me just talk about this, and I'll show you the umbrella, which could be more too, because it's so interesting to see when you start looking at it. And so again, I want to attribute these images. They're not mine. They're just from people who are very influential people in the neurodiversity affirmative community. So this one's from Matt Lowry's website too. So here's the neurotypical brain. Look at this. So neurowiring is like, if you activate one part of the brain, it most likely typically will go to where it needs to go. So let's say that a sensory thing or whatever is triggered, right? Something happens in the external environment. It's supposed to go towards motor receptor, fingers, pain, whatever, like something, some part where it's supposed to go, right? If you have an autistic brain, the same stimulation could be activating one part of the brain, and all of a sudden it diverges, which is where you get the term neurodivergent. It like goes many other parts of the brain. So here's the pro and con of it. The pro is when you have a neurodivergent person, most likely they're super duper creative too. Because when you think of it, like someone who can think of so many ideas, like how did you think of that? I don't know, I just did. You know, like your brain is like overactive. It's going all over the place. All this information is making you it's where you shine brightest. But also because of all this activity, I always pair this now with the heart, because people don't seem to respect the brain. They just think that everyone's brain is normal and no one should be complaining about being tired or having brain fog. So if your brain is overactive like this, consider an overactive heart. If your heart is beating nonstop, they have terms for it, right? They have the word like atrophy. Your heart is beating so fast, the tissue is going to wear and tear, and might be in the future you need a heart replacement, or parts of your heart need to be replaced. That's the seriousness of having a brain that's overworking. But people don't seem to make that connection. And so every time I try to talk about the brain, I correlate it to having an overactive heart or any other organ that works too hard. The tissue is going to burn out, and then you can get tired, more sick, more prone to like disease, injury, like all these things. But again, because we don't see the brain in this way, we just take it for granted that other people aren't having a difficult time just because their brain is autistic or ADHD. So that's just my thing about organs. We don't honor and respect the things that we have because we don't understand what it really means to have a difference in it. We just think everyone has the same normal, or even if you struggle, you don't understand because you don't see what is actually happening underneath. So like, again, going back to this, let's say that you smell a flower or you're eating something, right? So it's going to whatever this part of the brain is. I'm just making it up. This is probably not the right part. But anyways, so let's say you eat something or you hear something and it goes to this part of the brain. Let's say an autistic person hears something, eats something, same stimulation, it's going everywhere. And maybe one of the receptors it goes to, look at down here. This is like called the reptilian brain, right? This is where you have balance. This is where you have emotions, the fight, flight, or freeze parts of the brain. It looks like this part is being activated too, just because something here, same stimulation, was activated. So like we have very different experiences with the same stimulation that other people aren't understanding. And so when you see an autistic person all of a sudden shut down, an autistic person suddenly like get quiet because they're like can't talk or something, this actually might be happening inside their brain and they don't even know it, or they can't verbalize it. You know, there's, what is it called? Selective mutism, situational mutism could happen. You can't talk all of a sudden because you're overwhelmed. This is what it means when someone might be saying, I'm overwhelmed. This part of their brain is just like activated everything. So again, the pro and con of it, you could be very a quick thinker, could be learning very well, very fast about the things that you're passionate about, very creative person. At the same time, when this happens, you could have a shutdown. You could be so overwhelmed that this is what happens and your body can't handle it.